Hello, friends. It has been a hot minute. It's been definitely over 6 months. I haven't counted, but it's been definitely over 6 months since I have released an episode. I am alive. We are back as of today. And so let's do this thing, okay? I do feel like we need to kind of like catch up and regroup and things like that, because it's been quite a long time since I've been on here. And while this episode is not necessarily about me, I feel like it's just weird to, have a few episodes and, start full steam ahead and then just go radio silent and then just like pop in like nothing happened. You know what I mean? And I always feel like there's this conflict anytime I, post anything on social media, or anything like that, where it's like, there's an internal conflict of, okay, part of me says this is a business, this is, a channel to, talk about your coaching style and, help people and all of that, aka nothing to do with you, aka nobody cares. But also there's another part of me that very strongly believes that when we share our struggles, challenges, when we share the human side of us, we can relate to each other that much more. And when we relate to each other that much more, we learn from each other, right? We learn, hey, I'm not that, I'm not that different. I thought I was different, but hey, she goes through that too. Okay, I don't feel so different. You know what I mean? So I feel like there is that like internal conflict. And I do feel like I said it's just really weird to go from like, okay, where have you been to, hey, let's talk about protein. It's just very strange to me. So this isn't going to be a very long episode. I really just want to kind of catch you guys up, kind of what life has been like over the last few months, why I took a break, all of that stuff. And honestly speaking, the life just got a lot. There was a lot going on in life, and I am grateful that I am able to kind of look back on before I took a break, recognizing, hey, you are at your limit, and you need to start being really strategic, and you need to start being really intentional with where you are allowing yourself to spend your time, right? So, social media for me at least, while I'm very grateful to have a platform um to share my coaching style and tips to help you guys and things like that, I am such a people pleaser. And also at the same time, I am a solopreneur that probably should have better systems in place for like marketing and stuff. But like, okay, add it to my list of things to do. That, social media becomes bigger than it needs to be. And that takes up a lot of energy. That takes up a lot of headspace. And that makes me, second guess things and yada, yada, yada. And so I identified, okay, social media, we need to just put the brakes on really quick. Okay. And, also with this podcast, I still feel very strongly about this podcast, which is why we're getting it back up and running. Just showing you guys tips on like what a balanced and healthy lifestyle can look like, should look like, things like that, right? Because I feel like I have a lot to say, and I think a lot of social media platforms limit that. And I got a lot to say, okay? I'm long winded. I don't know how to kind of get around that. All right. I am who I am. And so, all that to say, I forgot where I was going with any of that. But uh, I recognized where my limits were. I recognized there were some things that I needed to put on pause and just be a little bit more efficient with where I chose to spend my time and my effort. So, focusing on my current clients, making sure they had what they needed. They are staying consistent through summertime and, reaching their goals, things like that. Spending a lot of time with family, spending a lot of time with Jesus, just kind of going through like some internal, I would say, growing pains. But there's also been things that have kind of just like made it difficult for me to even show up for myself. And I think that that's kind of important to touch on. Over the summertime, I lost my cat of 17 years, and this cat was with me through everything. Since before college, through getting married, through moving to Nashville. It's just, she's just been with me through everything. And so that was a really rough time. And like I say to my clients often, your headspace, your emotions affect your ability to show up. And we can't ignore that. You are a human, you are not a robot. Okay. And so, when we go through extra stressful times, or we are going through grief, or, anything like that, there's nothing wrong with you for not having as much, um, I don't want to say determination because I don't think that determination goes anywhere, but there's nothing wrong with you for not having as much energy to quote unquote show up for yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's okay if you need to take an extra rest day, rest week, not care about how much protein you're eating and just kind of like get through the days. You know what I mean? We're coming up to the holidays where holidays can be really stressful and emotional for a lot of people. And so, okay, if you can't show up how you're used to showing up, right? So for me in the summertime, grief with my cat, that might be you in the wintertime, with holidays or whatever else you're going through. Um, just because you can't show up how you are used to or how you would like to doesn't still mean that there aren't things that you can do to, number one, show up for yourself, even if that looks different, but also just kind of keep you tethered, doing the best that you can. And, like, for example, going for a walk every day. Well, that didn't necessarily make me snap out of grief, but it was something that I could do rather than just like looking at pictures and crying. So all of that to say, that happened over the summertime. What else happened over the summertime? We took a few trips, went to Vegas, went home a few times. I think that was really it. We didn't really travel a whole lot. It was a pretty quiet summer, but I did start, oh, my home gym, we found water in my home gym. And so that also kind of affected just my headspace in terms of like, what I'm putting out there, like visually, right? On like social media reels and stuff like that. I built my business in my basement, which I'm very grateful for. However, when your basement is now concrete floors with like random paint splattered, like an old basement, and and there's holes in the wall because you found water and your gym is taken apart and things like that, it's like, okay, I can't I can't necessarily show up online how I'm used to, right? And so I still work out downstairs. I still, do my thing. I also sometimes go to a local gym because I have class pass. It's easy for me to kind of just like pop in. But something new that I started over the summertime is I started working with coaching with F45. And that's been honestly really great. It's been really great for me to be able to kind of get back into like the in-person side of coaching. It is very different than the coaching that I offer my individual clients, my Train With Me subscription, all of that stuff. However, you've probably heard me say over and over again on this podcast, all movement has value, even though all movement is not created equal, right? And so it's just been very, I would say, edifying to my soul to be able to have a outlet, if you will, have a place where I can really just focus on the coaching side of coaching versus the business as well, versus writing the workouts, versus, you know what I mean? Like, versus all of that stuff. It's been, I don't want to say mindless because it's not mindless, but it's a really nice break for myself because I truly enjoy coaching. I absolutely love whether it's in person, seeing somebody who cannot do one push up, coaching them, walking them through, all of that stuff. And then boom, they can do a couple of push-ups. Like that is so cool. Like that is so cool to me. Or even in the virtual space, right? If a client tells me, hey, I didn't feel like showing up and I still did my workout, like I am genuinely your biggest cheerleader. Like that is so cool to me that you did not give in to wanting to quit on yourself or not show up. You did your best. Sometimes workouts are like that, right? And I love everything about coaching. And so anyways, F45 has been really great to allow me to kind of just like turn the business side of coaching off and really just focus on like the in-person side of coaching and just like, help people get stronger and help them, or I should say, try to help them improve their lives and reach their goals and things like that. So life has been a little crazy. And so I don't know what that means as far as like showing up online in the future. Because again, like, my basement is not necessarily usable. And obviously I have to, figure that out. But, for the time being, it's going to look a little different than usual. And whatnot. So, all of that to say, I'm really excited to kind of just get back to this podcast. Because there's a lot of things I want to talk about. I did have the idea of just like, okay, we are going to, yes, I want to hear from you. I want to hear topics, all of that stuff, but we are going to go through not only some topics that I'm seeing that I think could use some clarification and breaking down, like for example, how, weighted vests are not necessarily helping you build muscle. If you enjoy wearing a weighted vest, awesome, you do you, but it's not necessarily helping you build muscle. So we're going to, continue to talk about topics like that, break it down so that you can kind of focus on the basics that help you see the most change and feel the most progress and things like that. But I also want to talk about client conversation. So real life conversations as far as, what I talk to my clients about when we're having our monthly maintenance call or when we're doing a weekly check-in or things like that. Like for example, yesterday I had a conversation with a client who she got back on her GLP-1. She was on a GLP-1 before we started working closer together with nutrition and training. She took a break and she is back on GLP-1. And so, why I believe that that is not a negative thing. In fact, in her situation, I communicated to her very strongly that, okay, this is actually great because the GLP-1 is going to remove a lot of the noise that is causing you from being able to feel like we're gaining momentum and putting one foot in front of the other, right? A GLP-1 is not inherently a bad thing. And I think it can be a really helpful tool for a lot of people. Uh, but just like anything else, all tools can be abused, right? If you don't have a strategy, if you don't have the right intentions, if you don't really understand what you're doing, right? Sure, it can be not great for the wrong person. But, client conversations like that. So, like, why it's not necessarily a bad thing and how it can kind of cut down on that food noise, help you control how much you're eating a little bit more, focus on other habits so, because the food noise isn't there, things like that, right? And so all that to say, I feel like we just needed like a little catch up conversation. So short, sweet, to the point, but let's get back to it. I would still love to hear from you. If there's anything, nutrition, training, fitness journey in any way, shape, or form related, there is still the link where you can send in any of your topics and I will discuss them on the podcast. And whatnot. So let's do this thing. I'm happy to be back. I hope that you are excited for me to be back. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. And until next time, bye.